Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to Zandvoort for the first ever Glacier TV broadcast of the Prototype GT Challenge Series. We'll be bringing you coverage throughout the course of the season, bringing you a total of 6 races, and we'll be bringing you live footage from Circuit Park Zandvoort in just a couple of moments' time with Vincent, Yoni Backman, and we'll have a little bit of Marius Godemek in the booth a little bit later on as well. And Yoni, Zandvoort, because I've got something stuck in my throat, really fast technical track, but also narrow as well. It's going to make for some very interesting racing here today.
Indeed, it will, and I personally like Zandvoort, but not many people do. But it's going to be interesting to see how these three classes are going to be able to browse through each other, because even in single class we've seen tons of stuff happening. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, Circuit Park Zandvoort is a very technical, interesting racetrack. In fact, it's also one of my favourite tracks as well, so we do share something on that front. However, track has 13 corners in total. We've got 3 classes of cars racing here today. We have ourselves the LMP2 machines, the Honda Performance Development ARX. We also have the Corvette C6Rs, and in the GT2 class, we have the Ford GTs as well. Very quickly, your pole position in each class, Mads Burr setting the fastest qualifying time in the LMP2 class with a time of 1 minute 24.136, a full 7/10 of a second faster than the second place driver. In the GT1 class, you've got Kay Kajuspe, who has set the fastest time, a 1 minute 31.132. We saw Kay in some Talk racing races a little bit last year. And Nick Prestigi, who's been racing in a number of series here on Glacier TV, he set the fastest time in the GT2 class with a 1 minute 32.302. And Yoni, in the LMP and the GT1 class, you've got a big gap between first and second. It's a lot closer, however, in the GT2 class.
Absolutely, and I think there was a few super fast aliens planning to race in the top splits of the Proto GTs this season. I don't know why, but in the Ford GT and the Corvettes, especially this season, with the new change to the build of Ford GT, it has gathered up quite a bit of new drivers from the series. I mean, originally when the Ford came out, there were a lot of people driving it, but due to the old build, the bad build, can we say, it was not that racy of a car, but now it has gone pretty much upside down.
Indeed, you see the cars are currently lining up on the grid behind the iRacing.com pace car. Gives us a little bit of time now to run through your starting field. We'll start in the LMP2 class. Mads Burr setting pole position in that class. 1 minute 24.136 in second position will be Marcio Arcadenio with a time of 1 minute 24.807. Radcliffe Pike in third spot. In fourth place will be Dimitri Nambra. In fifth, Roderick Cronin. In sixth, Maxime Ramstein. And in the seventh position, Michael Booth. Moving over to the GT1 class, Kay Kasubi, we talked about him already, setting the fastest time. Florian Denard in second. Lieven in third. Jack Sedgwick in fourth. Tuana Leniotto in fifth, Kevin Parrish in sixth, and Patrick Berry in the sixth position. And then we've got ourselves in the GT2 class, Nick Prestigi, Robert DeRouge, Gorhemi Urato, Jonathan Fuller, Chad Holmes, and Jasper Grunweg. You see, as these cars are now rolling down towards turn number 1, behind the iRacing.com pace car, it is a very narrow track, especially this first sector, Yoni. As they come out of Tarzan box, work themselves through turn 2 and turn 3 into Hungen Holzbolt, it's a very difficult place to try and make a pass, and you can gain or lose a lot of time with traffic later on in this race.
Absolutely, well, and the turn 1 is a good place to set up a pass. It's highly banked, uncharacteristically to normal road courses, but then 2 and 3 narrow corners, they're also banked, especially turn 3 right now where the HPD leaders are coming right. This is also slightly banked, but very narrow, and because of the short acceleration between the 2 and 3, it's very difficult to put the cars too wide, especially since the turn 2 exit pushes the cars towards the inside line of the corner, so it's very easy to defend as well. But then
yeah.
coming to the inside straightaway here at the right, it's not straight in fact, but you're still able to take it fully flat out. After this, we have the pretty much one of the nastiest corners of the whole Zandvoort track, which is the long, I think it's turn 6 or 7, the long right-hander downhill, which is coming right here. This is the spot where we've seen lots of guys picking the beach instead of the tarmac.
Yeah, and this is a critical sector of the racetrack. You need to have good speed through these couple of corners, and then it gets a little bit more technical after they come out of this corner here. I really don't like the corner that's coming up now, and that is turn number 7. That is Mulber corner, and I've never been able to get a good balance around here. But you know, cars, if they can get a good line, they can be very, very fast with this section of the racetrack. Turn 6, 7, 8, and 9. Schlieffen, Mulber boxed, Renault boxed, and Vodafone boxed, respectively. And this section of the racetrack here, you can get a lot of, and because of the braking zones as well, you also have some very rapid closing rates from the LMP cars down to the GT1 and the GT2 machines.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, or critical aspect of the whole race, because there are plenty of corners in Zandvoort where the HPDs can carry far more pace. In fact, they survive some of the corners just by lifting, whereas the Ford GT and Corvettes have to go heavily on the brakes, drop a few gears in fact. So if we get into traffic around those sections of the track, and the HPD, who is a lapping car, is in a close battle of his own, it can get really nasty. As we can, by the way, see in the blame cam right now, the HPD field is pretty much disappearing into the horizon for the Corvettes, as it's normal for this series rolling starts that the Corvettes and the GTs are leaving a gap just to back them up for in case of wreck. And it's a funny thing to see, like, even though there's like you can see 6, 7, 8 cars per class, we have to remember that this race actually split in 3. We have 20 of the top runners of pretty much the top 6 runners of each class as we get ready to go green.
Yeah, they're working themselves now through Aaron line box, especially, sorry, the LMP2 cars are working themselves through Aaron line box now. Very fast corner to complete the lap. The GT1 cars a little bit further back, they are just working themselves now into turn 13. And you see Nick Vestigi slowing that field down as well for the GT2 class. The pace car about to make that turn down towards pit road, racing for 65 minutes here in the Proto GT Challenge. And Mads Berg gets the green lights on the gantry. He is away to a great start, putting out a huge lead there over Marco. As they come down into turn number 1, Marco had a little bit of a challenge there, as Radcliffe Pike's looking down to the inside of the track to take 3rd position away from Dimitri Nanda, as they're working themselves now down in turn number 2 in the GT1 class. It looks as though they've got 2 wide racing right now. Leatham has been able to get the pass done. Almost, he does get the pass now done on Jack Sedgwick. And in the GT2 class, it is as they started, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're all still circulating on the racetrack, but what a great start there by Matt Burr.
Indeed, and also start from the whole field. We didn't see any wrecks in it for the first 3 turns, and that's a lot in Zandvoort.
Yeah, Zandvoort, you know, first couple of corners, we talked about that already. It can be very, very treacherous. Now they're working themselves from the middle sector of this racetrack. Mads Burr has got himself about 5 tenths of a second gap right now over Marco in that number 11 car. Radcliffe Pike moved himself up into the 3rd position. But as you look down the field, everyone's still circulating on the racetrack. The GT1 class are very closely separated at the moment as they're working themselves now down into the Audi S. This is where you can make yourself some big passes. Kei Kajube's got himself about a half second, perhaps a full second gap right now over Florian Denard. And Leven in 3rd position has been able to say, get past Jack Sedgwick. Sedgwick falling back and under pressure right now from Kevin Parrish in the battle for the 4th position. And as they work themselves through our line direct box, we'll get confirmation as they've come past start finish line. Parrish is now going to look to the outside line of Sedgwick, and they almost touched twice there. And they did touch. And Sedgwick coming down towards pit road. No, he's not, but he's just letting the entire field go past.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if he got a slowdown penalty or then he just was pushed sideways to lose enough straight line speed that he was just thinking, oh, never mind, just let everyone go past because there's no point in trying to keep him up. Not sure why he slowed down that much though. He's dropped significantly from these 3 cars.
He has indeed, and he is now running at the rear of that field. And he's sideways, he's into the wall, he's scraped the wall there. there's definitely some damage to that 12 car, and I think he got a little bit of a tap from behind from Stefano Laniotto in the 2 car, but Cedric is really having some issues in the early stages of this race. And what this has done as well is Lieben's been able to pull out quite a big gap now over Kevin Parrish in 4th. Stefano Laniotto putting the pressure now on Kevin Parrish in that battle for the 5th position in the GT1 class. But to run through your top 5 in each class is Mads Burr from Marco in the HPD class. In 3rd is Radcliffe Pike. In 4th is Dimitri Namba. In 5th is Roderick Cronin. In GT1, it is Kei Kachube from Florian Denard. From Lieben from Kevin Parrish from Stefano Laniotto. And then in GT2, it's Rustigi from De Rouge. From Murato, from Fuller, from Chad Holmes, who rounds out your top 5. And right now, the best battle is going on in the GT1 class. However, in the LMP, you've got Mads Burr pulling out a big gap now, 1.1 seconds over Marco. But those top 2 drivers pulled out a huge gap over Radcliffe Pike in 3rd.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to see the field spread out this much in such an early stage of the race, but it's still HPDs have the bottom 4. It's ridiculous to say bottom 4 because all these guys represent the fastest of the fast in HPD, but these guys are going like toe to toe pretty much. Looks like well, I'm not sure if Dimitri Namba in the 4th place is keeping these guys up, holding them up, but everyone seems to share pretty much identical lap times. It can be because of the fact that the front car is slowest, but usually if we're used to seeing HPDs overtake pretty well if the car in front is significantly slower. So it's gonna be interesting to see if one of these guys is able to get past Dimitri. What then?
Indeed, yeah, and I'll tell you what as well, they've got about a 3-car train right now. Radcliffe Pike, Dimitri Namba and Roger Cronin are running a line of thirds to work themselves down into our line bike box once again. To let our viewers know, you'll see there's 3 different tickets running along the top of your screen, and that corresponds to each class. The red, you'll see the cars and the standings, everything in the red, that'll be for the LMP class. Those in green, that is for the GT1 class, and in a purpley pink colour, that is for the GT2 class. And it's like right now you've got yourselves a nice 3-car train as they're working themselves now down into turn number 3, Hungenholtz box once again, and this is about for the 3rd position on the racetrack. Radcliffe Pike in 3rd, Dimitri Namba in 4th, and Roger Cronin in 5th. And it looks like Cronin is just trying to hold on to these 2 right now. And it looks as though that Namba, of course, he lost that position to Pike at the start of this race, but all over the rear of Radcliffe Pike right now, so working themselves down into turn at number 6 once again. And I'm not quite sure, but Namba, he's got the speed, and of course in a long race like this as well, he might just be trying to keep his tyres, you know, under control and then make that charge later on.
Might be the case, and we have to remember this is one of the few official series where everyone is forced to make a pit stop. So that's going to be an interesting factor as well, because the pit entry is far from easy at this track.
Oh, pit entry is very difficult. You have to slow your cars down very quickly to be able to get yourself down onto pit road. And pit road, the way it jerks out as well, you've got to get that speed down. We have seen a number of speeding penalties in this series over the course of the past week on iRacing, and to have a look, it looks like Cronin is now starting to lose that draft, and the draft is going to be very important down this front straightaway. Everywhere from Kume box to turn 12, and Landite box past Tunnel West and down into Tarzan box, you get a huge amount of straight line speed, and if you you lose that draft, then you are only going to go backward in relation to the cars in front. Very quickly going to check in on your GT2 class, and I say Nick Petit, he is still leading the way. Right now he's only got himself about a 7/10 of a second gap between himself and Robert De Rouge, and Gohemi Rato only a further 8/10 of a second back. And right now, as Robert it looks very sideways actually by Nick Vestigi, it looks as though those top 3 drivers are very closely separated in the GT2 field.
Yeah, very sideways, uncharacteristically sideways for Vestigi. Usually he goes on rails from start to finish. Given Robert De Rouge very good run, but let's see if he's able to pull that gap down from 0.3 of a second. No, picks up 0.1 of a second, but not enough to set up a pass. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see that Zandvoort is narrow, so without mistakes, chances of overtaking are slim. But the chances of overtaking, like we said with the Lotus 79 broadcast, a while ago, just shortly before this one at Interlagos. It's the same situation here with the GT cars. Chances of big mistakes are significantly bigger than like Spa, for example.
And especially in this GT2 car, you've driven it quite a lot, Yannick. Very difficult to turn in certain parts of this racetrack. And you saw that DeRouge was right on the rear of Nick Vestigi as they work themselves through that very fast section from Buchenholzbock all the way up to about Schlieffen in turn 6. But all of a sudden he drops off a little bit as he's having to take those corners with so much speed with that dirty air effect as well. And it looks like he is struggling just a tiny bit, but still good straight line speed. Looking as though he's trying to force Vestigi into mistake, and he has already made a couple of minor mistakes since this race has gone green.
Yeah, and like we see right now, the overtaking is difficult without mistakes, but we have to remember this is a multi-class event, and Mats Burr, the leader of the HPDs, is now 1 minute and 5 seconds behind the first of the GT2 lap cars. So since they're lapping about 125 a lap, within few laps we're going to start to see the HPD leaders overtaking the traffic, and the slower traffic and the faster traffic in the eyes of the tin top cars. That can be the issue and the key element of making successful overtaking around here.
Indeed, yeah, and of course that gap is slightly inflated because of the fact that the GT1 and GT2 cars were so far back at the start of this race, making sure everyone had ample space. But give it about 3 or 4 laps time, you will see the HPD traffic starting to come through the field. They'll come, of course, through the GT2 cars first. Chad Holmes is currently 1 minute and about 20 seconds behind your race leader in the LMP class. That is Mads Burr. And, of course, that works as well for the GT1 and the GT2 cars because there's not as much of a speed differential between those cars normally. But here today, you see that the Corvettes are a lot faster than the GT2s. And that's going to make things very interesting as, of course, the LMP cars can take more different lines, you could say, than the GT1 and the GT2 cars. But when you get the two GT classes running together, that's when things could get very interesting, and Robert DeRouge will be looking to try and make some form of a comeback as this race progresses, looking for that traffic. Going to check back in GT1 world, and it is still Keisha Shuby leading the way. Right now he's got himself a 4-second gap over Florian Denard in the second position. That battle that was going on between Leven, Parrish and Laniotto, that is continuing on the racetrack. Those three cars currently separated by about 1.5 seconds on the racetrack. Laniotto at the rear of that gap. Kevin Parrish, we saw he was very close to making a pass a little bit early on Leven, but right now that 16 car is looking as like he's got those tyres now up to temperature going, and he's starting to build up that gap.
Yeah, and meanwhile it looks like Kevin Parrish is the slowest of the top 5 runners. He managed to get past in the early laps of the race, but last few laps Tapani Linnoloto has been closing the gap significantly, and have to say that out of all the 7 cars in the Corvette field of the top split, Kei Kashibe is in a world of his own. Last time around 0.7 of a second faster than the P2 Corvette.
Meanwhile, Mads Burr puts himself now around all of the GT2 traffic. He did that pretty much in 1 lap there, getting himself past C2 Robert DeRouge and Guilherme Ratto pretty much in 1.5 corners there. So the PlayStation car of Mads Burr now working himself back down into turn number 6 once again on this racetrack. And importantly, he's got himself a 2.7 gap now over Marco Acadonio in the number 11 car. And when you have the LMP classes, you know, spread out, it makes it easy for the GT traffic in some ways. However, Marco can't gain that advantage if Mads Burr is forced stuck behind a car for a couple of corners.
Indeed, and building that gap in the multi-class racing, building the gap to the guy behind you before you get to the first lap car, session of lapping cars, or first cycle, should I say. That's one of the key elements, because it makes your job a lot easier. You don't have to intervene with slower class. Drop fucking 3 wide going through the last corner there. 2 HPDs on 1 GT. How in the world did they survive that? But just as I was saying, that's what's going to happen if you don't build a gap. And they're 3 wide going to turn 1, for Christ's sake. Oh,
yeah.
Cronin hits Ratcliffe Pike here.
And yeah, you see them car on the inside of turn number 1, looking as though he's got himself some damage there. We'll try and get ourselves a replay of that momentarily. But you're completely right, that is what happens when you have that many car classes working together on the racetrack. And it was as they're coming down into turn 1. Roderick Cronin is like, they were 3 wide already. Cronin just outbrakes himself, it looks as though there, and just gets sideways and touches, it looks like that was Radcliffe Pike as they came through the corner. And that's going to really hurt Roderick Cronin there. And bad luck for him in that number 14 car.
Yeah, really coming up on the front of main straightaway right now. Just came across the start-finish line, and that was pretty much as scary as you can get with the lap traffic session in Zandvoort. And yeah, Roderick Cronin just tough to say whether Roderick just overshot the corner a little bit, or did Radcliffe just turn into him slightly too much. I mean, considering it's a banked corner, I would have given more space there for Roderick to work with, since Radcliffe surely would have beaten him on the exit.
But at the same time, of course, they were coming into the corner 3 wide, so you always want to make sure you give yourself a little bit of room. It does look as though, from my eyes, that Cronin just did go a little bit hot into that corner. I'd give it probably about 50-50 either way, one of those standard racing incidents. But that's dropped Cronin right down the field in the LMP2 class, and now he is all the way behind Maximilian Ramstein, who is in the 5th position, and is also, looks as though he stays ahead of Michael Booth for the time being. Yes, he does, but now he is 27 seconds behind the race leader, and importantly, has to work for that GT2 traffic yet again. It's going to cost him even more time. He's now coming up behind his Radical Steel Series teammate of Nick Vestigi, whose procedure just lets him go down to the inside. But that's going to cost him, as Robert DeRouge now is going to go side by side of him as they work themselves now out of hook and hold spell. And Robert DeRouge is waiting for one of these moments where Vestigi goes wide into the corner. He can just slip in behind the fast traffic, and DeRouge really is looking racy right now.
Indeed he is, and there are so many drivers, competitive drivers in pretty much all the multi-class with HPD, Corvette, Ford GTs, Pontiac Solstice, Mazda MX-5s that have a good racecraft, but just avoid risky dive bomb overtakings. But Robert DeRouge is one of them who is sometimes even overly patient, waiting for his opportunities. But there are also some of these guys who are awesome, and they've really learned to deal with the traffic to their advantage, which means, for example, you go into turn 1 following someone closely, and if you know you're going to have a run into the following corner, you take the inside to cover it from the HPD, so you don't lose any time on your own. And then when you have the most suitable spot for you to let the HPD by, then you do it, and then you set it up hoping that the HPD is going to catch the guy in front of you in a trickier spot, which makes your job easier.
So about 15 minutes of the race now timed complete. It is still Mads Burr leading the way. He's now got himself a 5-second gap over Marco Acadonio in the battle for the LMP class. In the GT1 class, it is Kei Kajube with a 4-second gap over Florian Denard. And in the GT2 battle, it's got Nick Vestigi with Robert DeRouge right behind them, as they're currently working themselves on lap number 10 of this 65-minute race here at Circuit Park Zandvoort. If you guys want to be the new voice of GlacierTV, if you are a budding commentator and would like to get yourself the chance to be broadcasted here live on GlacierTV, then let us know. Go to facebook.com/GlacierTV, or let us know through Twitter, twitter.com/GlacierTV as well. You never know, you could be one of the voices for a broadcast here in the Proto GT Challenge. Meanwhile, Mads Burr has got himself now a 4.1 second gap over Marco Acadonio, and that 17 car that last time by a 1 minute 26.749. And for Marco, however, that last lap, it looks like he was actually just a little bit faster. In fact, 7/10 was a second faster. And Yoni, that is the traffic coming into play right there.
Yeah, we saw a few moments ago, we saw on the screen the Prestigis and Robert DeRouge last laps as the HPDs were lapping them. 3.5 seconds a lap compared to what these guys can do in open air, clean air, without the traffic involved. So 3 seconds a lap, that's what you can lose with a bad luck. So if you have a slower traffic or the faster traffic lapping you in the wrong spot, and you can pretty much lap normally if you have a good luck and you can pass the traffic on straightaways. So it can be anything from 3.5 seconds to nothing. So it's also a matter of luck. It's a matter of luck partially, but also a big deal. It has a lot to do with the racecraft, because with a good racecraft, you know where to not to do risky maneuvers, when to go for risky maneuvers, and anything in between.
And of course, you can actually gain yourself a tiny bit of speed as well. For example, having a look at Marco right now, he's got himself a little bit of a toe from the GT1 cars. As he comes down into turn number 1, it looks like he's trying to make the move onto Pino Leniotto. As he comes through, he has the inside line and will be able to complete the pass there. Also on Leven as he works himself out of turn number 1. And there, you see, he didn't lose too much time at all. In fact, he did get the draft down the front straight away. Might have helped him a tiny bit, but what that has done is it's back Leven right up into Pino Leniotto once again. And right now, in this battle, in the GT1 class, for 4th and 5th position, Leniotto is looking very strong. In fact, we're looking on board now with Stefano Leniotto as he works himself down into turn number 5 once again. And for Leniotto, I think that, you know, we have seen he can be a very aggressive racer, but right now, he's stuck behind Leven. He's got himself quite a big gap to Kevin Parrish ahead of him now. That's been built up these last couple of laps. However, I'm not sure if he's going to try and go for the move now or wait for pit stop, but that last time by, he was about the same pace as Leven. However, Kevin Parrish was a full 1 second quicker, 1.3 seconds quicker, and that is important.
It absolutely is important, and the thing that Tapani was mentioning me in a TeamSpeak before this race started was the fact that, first of all, he was saying that the Kei Kashube's qualifying time, both qualifying and race pace, was just alien-like. He was half a second off of Kashube's pace in the qualifying trim, which he usually is. Usually Tapani gets much closer to Kashube's qualifying times than this. But also he was saying that about the traffic issue in Zandvoort. I'm not sure actually if he wants to wait until pit stops, because the pit stops happen in very, very late stages of the race. Unless there's some accidents or some damage involved in his car, but yeah, I don't think if he gets a spot, I don't think he wants to wait that long, especially since, like you said, Kevin Parrish was able to escape almost a second a lap after he got past Leven, so my guess is that Tapani would also be a lot faster. But he might get his chance now as the HPDs are coming to lap him, and this is the problem. HPDs against 4 GTs, that's a piece of cake because of the not so fast straight line speed and the aero in the corners, but Corvette has the same aero problem in corners, but Corvette is significantly faster in the straights, so lapping Corvettes with HPD is not that easy thing to do.
It's not, and
that's good run now.
Yeah,
that's what I was talking about. The HPD just made a critical pass, was done in a wrong spot for Leven's point of view, and from Tapani's point of view, that was half a second more delay, and Tapani would have been able to stick his car on the inside.
But now that Tapani is stuck because he's been split there by Redcliffe Pikers, they're working themselves now down into Kuma box, and to make matters worse for Leniotto, it looks as though that you'll probably have Pike putting the lap there out to come through this corner, but you don't want to go too wide for a line down box. You see there that Pike was having to go all the way down to the inside line because Leven did not want to lose any speed at all. Luckily, Leniotto was also being lapped by Maxime Ramstein there as they're working themselves back down into turn number 1, tires and bikes here on this racetrack. This is a difference maker right now, where you get that traffic. It is a lot of luck, but it's also how you deal with that traffic as well. And Ramstein is going to put that pass as they come into turn number 3. No, he's not, but then you don't want to be stuck behind a GT1 car as you go through this section of the racetrack. You'll be stuck behind him pretty much about 20 seconds. You see Ramstein there finally able to get past now, and that did cost Leven a little bit as Leniotto's closed that gap back down to about 4 car lengths.
Yeah, that's that, like you saw in the when the GT1s and the HPD was coming past the start-finish line last time around the top edge of the screen. You saw Tapani Leniotto lap when Ramstein was lapping him, and the Corvette actually builds up more speed at the end of the straight lines than the HPD does due to the high downforce setup that the HPD is forced to use. So they actually, the Corvettes actually escape the HPDs at the end of the straight, so they have to dive in very, very late compared to 4 GTs to get past the Corvettes. And yeah, like you said, when Ramstein was lapping Leven there in the middle of the inner straightaway, Leven actually had to lift in the middle of the straight, and that cost him pretty bad amount of time. But like we see right now, there's the Roder Cronin, I think it is. These 6 HPD runners coming to lap Tapani. Watch what happens right now. Tapani now has significantly less speed, but watch at the end of the straightaway. Tapani almost catches. Now he starts to pick up the pace, and actually Tapani beats him second time after the start-finish line before he goes into the braking zone. And that's just how much speed Corvette is able to develop at race compared to the HPDs.
But then as they come down the corners, you can just see how late that LMP2 car can brake. And this is going to be interesting right now because Cronin is right up behind the number 16 car of Beaver and Donkeden as they're working themselves now through this section of the racetrack. And Cronin's going to want to get going, of course, because he had that incident at the start of the race. He's been trying to close down on Maximilian Ramstein. He goes wide a little bit there, Lieber does, as he had to allow Cronin to go past. And this has allowed Laniotto to close back up once again. And that's going to make things a little bit interesting now as they come down into turn number 7 Marlboro box, then Renault box and Vodafone box here. These sequence of corners which are very, very technical for these cars. And Cronin, have a look at his lap times actually, because he's been trying to close down Maxim Ramstein. And last time for Roger Cronin was a 1 minute 26.862. Maximum 1 minute 28.730. So you can tell how costly that incident at the start of the race was for that 14 car of Roger Cronin.
Absolutely, and will be fun to see when these cars start to pull into the pits, whether Roderick decides, if he still has some damage left in his car, whether he chooses to fix some of the damage. As we see all the 3 car classes in the straight line, 3 wide, but into the braking zone you can clearly see how much more, how much deeper into the braking zone the HPD is able to go, and the Corvette just simply carried more speed than the Ford GT did. So that's pretty much the key element, key differences of these 3 classes right there.
Yeah, and I think the best place to really demonstrate that is I've seen once when you had GT2 or GT1 and an MP
Guillermo
car.
Morato is in trouble now. There's HPD, Corvette and GT traffic here. The battle for second position in the Ford GTs is now heating up because the traffic is all over the place. Both of the P2 and P3 cars of Robert Arouge and Guillermo Rato here. Now Rato has to deal with one more HPD and the Corvette coming behind him, and if the HPD makes it difficult for him, he is, because the Corvette is on the outside, he has to take the inside into the chicane or brake super early, which means Guillermo Rato behind him is going to close up the gap, which he does, from 1 second down to 0.5 of a second. So if that happens second time around in succession in a short amount of time, that's going to be interesting. And now we have one more Corvette and HPD coming to lap these guys.
Yeah, and also very lucky though as Nick Prestige was able to build up a little bit of gap in that process as well. KCB will get the job done as a work himself. This is P1 in the GT1 going past P1 in the GT2 car, as we've now got ourselves 30 minutes of this race scored.
Oh, this is going to be nasty.
Oh my god, down the inside and Cronin making
P2 GT is in trouble now. Watching the exit as the P3 GT closes right up on him.
And that time Cronin made it stick, thankfully, otherwise that would have been carnage. But Robert Ruiz now under a ton of trouble, and again Prestigi's been able to pull out so much time in this process as well. Gehemi Ratto now right up behind Robert Rouge in this battle for his second position in the GT2 class. And just a couple of laps ago, Prestigi was only about a second and a half ahead. He is now a full 4 seconds ahead on the racetrack, and it shows when you have these huge trains of cars coming that it can make a big difference. Of course, now Prestigi has got to get past by Florian Denard to be able to get back into the groove. However, you see, DeRouge is starting to close that gap down a little bit, but he's under a lot of pressure right now from Guilherme Ratto in that Falcon GP car. Looks down to the inside. He's going to switch back over, so he won't be able to make the pass here. But Ratto now thinking he can smell blood and perhaps smell second position.
Indeed he is, and since we're not talking about fixed setup series here, we're talking about open setups. There's quite a significant amount of different lines through these 2 sections of corners, which we just saw. You can go very wide into the second one, the first one with the price of losing a bit of time into the second one, but losing time is irrelevant when you're talking about setting up passes for positions. That's a funny corner complex, because almost in every single car that the service provides, you are able to pick your line through those corners and set up passes, and we see them quite a bit passing done in those corners. As we see one car pulls into the pits, I think it's Jonathan Fuller in the 15 car, pulls into the pit lane. Will be interesting to see if this is a scheduled stop. We're approaching the midway point of the race. But considering the pit stops in the Ford GTs take quite a bit of time. Actually, it's around 9.1 second pit stop. Considering this, how much time you lose if you start with a lower fuel amount and then you have to fill more fuel. That's unlike in a Formula 1 pit stop. That costs you 10 to 20 seconds more easily. Marato now is being lapped by I think it's Kevin Parrish. Yep, Kevin Parrish in the 6 car laps Guillaume Marato. Now he has to deal with Robert DeRouge, and this could be an opportunity for Marato now if the Corvette decides to pick his line into the chicane going to the outside. So slight time lost for Robert DeRouge since he has to back off to let the Corvette safely by. But so far the first cycle completed, and only one collision so far from Roderick Cronin, but all 20 cars that started this race are still on the racetrack.
Indeed, yeah, and you're alluding to the curious case Jonathan Fuller in that number 15 car, and completely right. Of course, there is a disadvantage to starting the car with full fuel, the fact that your car's higher, running lower to the ground, you're putting more strain on the tyres early on in the race. However, and of course lap times are slower as well, however, the time that you lose, the Ford GTs especially, they put the fuel in so slowly, you lose a lot more time than you gain in that situation, and it'll be interesting to see whether Robert Fuller can keep that 4th position at the end of this race, or whether he'll fall behind the likes of Jasper Groeneweg after this sequence of pit stops is complete. Meanwhile, I'm going to run through your top 5 in each class. First of all, in the LMP class, it is Mads Burnau with a 3.1 second gap over Marco Accadonio in the battle in the LMP2 class. In 3rd position is Dimitri Namba. In 4th is Rako Pike. In 5th is Maxim Ramstein. In the GT1 class, it is Kate Koshube from Florian Denard still. Kevin Parrish in 3rd. Lieven Drunkenen in the 4th position. Tapano Laniotto rounding out your top 5. And then in the GT2 class, it is Nick Vestigi from Robert DeRouge, from Guilherme Rasso, from Jessica Broenweg, and Jonathan Fuller. And as Jamie alluded to, every single car is still circulating on this racetrack here at Circuit Park Zandvoort, the 2.67 mile, 13 corner track set in the heart of Holland. And Yoni, the way these pit stops are going to work, we expect all of these drivers to pit late. However, you get yourself, for example, if you're GT1 car and you see a lot of traffic coming up behind you and traffic ahead of you, you might want to come down pit road perhaps those 1-2 laps earlier, because although tyres are a critical factor here, also you have the fact that that traffic can cost you quite a lot of time, and you can probably gain more time by pitting those 1-2 laps earlier and hope that the rest of the field you can avoid them.
Yeah, not only that, you also have a chance of which case I'm watching Jonathan Fuller, sorry, only did 9.1 second pit stop, which means he took the correct amount of fuel which is needed to finish the race, and that could be strategic-wise a smart move if he showed in the F3 window, which is the showing the relative gaps for the drivers, that he had traffic coming closely behind him. To gain time, he actually did that just for strategic purpose, but also it can be that if you burn your tires, front or rear, there's a possibility that taking that splash of fuel, you have enough time to change 2 tires, and unlike in NASCAR where they change right side first then left side, in these cars you change either the front pair or the back pair, and that can be a possibility that he had burnt tires and he just wanted to take a fresh pair.
Indeed, and it's very interesting the way these strategies work throughout this race as well. And don't forget, we are just under 4 weeks away from GlacierTV's first presentation of the 2013 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. That will be taking place on the 30th of March from Suzuka Circuit. Start time for that will be 2 PM GMT. As we're working ourselves now, we're 36 minutes of this race, scored complete into the last half an hour now. And we're expecting these cars to come, into pit road in perhaps the next 20 minutes time?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be in the 20 minutes time, I would think. Well, in 20 minutes it's going to be close for the Corvettes and the Ford GTs, but the HPDs surely are going to have to lap within the first 20 minutes. I'm not sure after they adjusted the fuel consumption routine patterns for the Ford GT. I'm not sure how much fuel they're able to. Ford GT, I would think they're still able to go within 6 minutes until the end of the race before pitting. Meanwhile, the Corvettes have to pit somewhat around 50 to 55 minute markers. So, but HPD is surely going to be expected within 15 minutes.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with those drivers as well. Again, for them, they might pit a couple of laps early if they see that the cars ahead of them, they've got a huge gaggle of cars who they want to pass. We've seen already big clumps of drivers on this racetrack going 3 wide, especially down into Tarzan back to turn number 1. I tell you what though, Robert De Rouge in the GT2 car has been able to close that gap now, back down to about 1.5 seconds over Nick Vestigi, and it really is the case of Robert De Rouge of anything you can do, I can do better, because he's closed that gap down now, and also at the same time he's kind of pulled Johanny Ratto along with him in that battle for the first position, but Ratto is struggling to hold on to these top 2 drivers now.
Yeah, Ratto's last lap was about a second faster than De Rouge's lap was, but that was because of the heavy traffic that he had to deal with. Meanwhile, Vestigi and De Rouge both did not suffer that much of a traffic. They both lapped about 1.5 seconds within their fastest laps, which is the normal pace of a Ford GT after the tires start to build up heat. So currently looks to me like De Rouge is about 0.3 of a second a lap faster than Vestigi is, but what was the famous line again? Catching a guy is one thing, and passing is completely another. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, shall I do that? Shall I do that in a more natural way of doing it?
Nah.
Well, I'm going to do it. Of course, with Robert De Rouge, you know, catching is one thing, but passing is another. But he closed that gap now down to less than 1 second. You see, just 2 car lengths on the racetrack, and we saw this a little bit earlier on as well. Robert De Rouge was able to get very close to the rear of that 3 car of Nick Vestigi, the battle in the GT2 cars, and also in the LMP class. Radcliffe Pike has made that trip down towards pit road, and Jack Sedgwick as well going very slowly. I think he's had some issues there, because that 12 car, I think he hit the wall, and he had a collision there with Radcliffe Pike as they're working themselves into Harry Leinbach box, and he came into corner, didn't realise that Pike was coming down to his inside. Pike gets a ton of damage, and that's the reason why he's down on pit road. But Sedgwick as well, he got that car flipped upside down almost, and it's the second collision we've had in this race today, and it's the easiest and also the most difficult corner to make a pass here, especially if you come up with a huge head of steam.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get a replay of that Pike-Sedgwick incident. Both look like both Sedgwick and Pike are gonna be out of the race. I'm gonna try to get a replay right now, see if we can find the correct cameramans in the correct spots.
We'll just wake up the Penguins, but Jack Sedgwick, his car especially, looks as though that is done. He's severely damaged the suspension on that car when he flipped it. He barrel rolled that car actually, and also it looks as though that Radcliffe Pike is going to be classified as out of the race as well. That will move Michael Booth up into the 6th position. Yeah,
nailed it with the first shot, and that was again, you have 2 pretty different points of view in that situation. Let's have another look at that shot, but from on board of Radcliffe Pike's car, and you can see what I'm talking about, because that can be a tricky issue as they're coming through the last corner. With HPD, you have to take that flat out. There's no way you can afford it. He was involved in a close battle of his own. He was on the inside. HPD is able to stick the nose in the inside through the whole corner, but the Corvette cannot possibly take the whole corner too wide in the outside line. So that's exactly what I was talking about. If Radcliffe Pike had not been in a close battle of his own, he would have just waited through that corner to get into the start-finish line, but this time he had no choice but to go for there. And in this case, I would say Jack Sedgwick was in a bad position of do or die. If he hadn't seen HPD earlier coming past him and knew that, oh, he's gonna come anyway, he would have lifted far more and just secured the outside line with less exit speed. But that's one of those unfortunate incidents that multi-class racing does have in it. And yeah, fast rolling corners, HPD on the inside, not a good thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well. Yeah, you have to make sure. I mean, there's 2 completely different perspectives there. You know, the LMP cars, they know that's the way they take their corner. They'll be thinking, wait a minute, you're kind of blocking me off here. But you always have to put yourself into the shoes of the other class to figure out what they can and can't do as well. And one of those unfortunate incidents once again. However, it is another retirement there in the LMP class. So have a look through your retirees. We have Jack Cedric out of the race, and we have Radcliffe Pike out of the race as well. So they are your only 2 retirees at the moment. Chad Holmes is currently scored as 3 laps down. He's the last of the GT2 cars circulating on the racetrack in that digital Apex number 13 car, and he is dramatically behind Jonathan Fuller, the next car in the GT2 field. However, we are approaching pit stop time now in the LMP class, and Mads Burr, his last lap.
Sorry, Ratto attacking. We have top 3 GT cars within 1 second on the racetrack, and Ratto now closed up again to Robert Derouge, and now he's really heating up.
And I talked about how Derouge was able to pull that gap away from Ratto a little bit and close up to rear Prestiging. Looks like that dirty air is coming into effect, and now Ratto's the guy who looks the fastest out of that 3 right now. And all of these drivers need to make sure they just keep their tyres going for the next 3 or 4 laps. Of course, you overcook them at this stage of the race and you can really put yourself into a world of issues as we head towards pit stops. So this is the critical part of that race right now. All of these drivers need to make sure they have very good next 4 or 5 laps to make sure they get themselves into a perfect position for pit stops. However, I question whether or not Prestige can come out in the race lead as soon as this is done.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. One splash of fuel too much can decide the whole thing. And one thing we've seen through this season with Robert Urkila, who is one of the masters of the Ford GT fuel saving mode, we've seen that even though even in the fixed setups, you start with the same amount of fuel, and some guys are able to save up to 1.5 laps of fuel compared to the other runners, and still lap within 1 second of their lap time. So for Prestige, I'm not sure if he actually gambles of saving fuel and letting these guys be in the close proximity, with then he having to only take a splash less fuel and save about 3 seconds in the pits. It can be one part of it, but that also can be a factor. Robert Derouge and Guillermo Ratto, even if you could get a good run on the straightaway, they don't pass you just to save fuel in the draft, which is not that big of a draft, but it's still a draft. If you can able to gather up more speed in the straightaways using the draft from the other guy, you can lift off slightly earlier into the braking zones and save just maybe that tad more fuel.
And those 3, it looks as though that Ratto, once he gets into that dirty air, however, he does drop back a little bit. He's now about 7 tenths of a second behind Robert Derouge once again, as we now got ourselves 45 minutes of this race scored complete. Very quickly, going to head over to GT1 land and Lieven Jonkonen. So he's got Steele to Panaliniotto all over the rear of them. Those 2 being very closely separated in the battle for the last of the podium finishes here. And Kei Kashuba, however, is absolutely dominating that GT1 field right now, as you just have there Maxim Ramstein looking as though he actually touches it and spins him there.
Running
and
it out.
Lieven is going to be into the cross. He won't be out of the race, but that's going to cost him nearly.
Yeah, that was again late maneuver from the HPD to dive in. If you want to make that pass, that's the one thing. Not that much in these days, but in the early stages of the HPD Proto GT Challenge Series, that was one of the main issues that caused the Ford GTs and the Corvette fields start to should we say, drop the series completely from their own schedules, because of the fact that the HPDs were doing late dive-ins race after race and causing like headaches for the slower car class. And that was one of those cases. We don't see them that much in these days because of new builds, more accurate telemetry for the HPD, etc., etc., and more importantly, the drivers have improved their racecraft. But still, every time we see them, it's like, why did you do that? I mean, you were not in a close fight of your own. You could have indicated your passing attempt earlier, pick the inside line earlier, or just wait through the whole corner. You had no rush, and instead you choose a late dive in and cause you to clip a car of the race class that you're not even racing with. So why do that?
And Drogonen has now fallen right back behind to Panaliniotto, and thankfully right now he's still ahead of Kevin Parrish, but has Parrish made his pit stop already?
Yeah, I was just about to say, lap earlier, Kevin Parrish was the first Corvette to make a pit stop, 7-second pit stop, so splash of fuel, no tires for Kevin Parrish. And that can be, taking tires is also an
Robert
issue
DeRouche,
because...
sorry, very close there to Nick Vestigi. He had a run just about on the inside there as Vestigi locked up a little bit as they went down into turn number 3, but DeRouche hasn't been able to get the power as he comes out the corner. He falls back in line again, but that was the closest DeRouche has been. Sorry to interrupt you there, Yoni, in that battle for the GT2 lead, and himself up into first in class there. But to go back to Parrish, so, you know, that pit stop, first one to make that pit stop, it could work out well for him. Yeah,
it could. Like you said earlier, the traffic can be an issue, and also there can be a factor of using a setup which burns your tires too much. And if you have such a setup which doesn't save your tires, you have the option of pitting at the same time as everyone else, but then you have to switch a pair of tires, and that pair of tires can cost you that extra 2 seconds on the track. And if you don't have that 2 seconds to the guy behind you, you're gonna lose the position. So it's always a gamble. But if you don't have a car that saves tires, and then you don't change the tires, you take more fuel, that makes the car slightly more slippery than it already had been. That can cause lots of problems to the drivers at late stage of the race. By the way, it looks to me like the winner of this trio is entering the pits right now, Guillermo Rato. Reason I say winner is because of the fact that he was tailing these cars through pretty much the whole race, and now he takes a gamble of pitting earlier, taking the fuel. Let's see how long his pit stop is going to be. But now when he pits earlier, he has a chance, if he gets an empty track with a bit of luck, to blast the lap times. He could be he would have potential to, but it's a long pit stop, 16.4 seconds. So that indicates that he took all 4 tires, and that's a bad move, unless he gets a speeding penalty.
Yeah, with this little time remaining in the race, I mean, we've only got ourselves, what, 15 minutes to go, you won't get the full advantage to make up that time back. Perhaps in a 2-3 hour race especially, you might be able to gain that time over a longer run.
Lindelof into the pits as well.
So the GT1 car of Tuan Lenioto and the number 2 machine down on towards pit road. But, you know, with 15 minutes of the race to go, you've almost wanted to have done it the other way around and had a half race if you're going to change 4 tyres. But that really is going to cost Guillermo Rato in the late stages of this race. It's going to make it a 2-way battle for the lead of the GT2 class, Nick Vestigi and Robert DeRouche. Meanwhile, to look at Lenioto, he is back out and away there in the 2 car. He's going to fall right back in the 3rd position, of course. In fact, no. Levin will go past him for the time being, but he's yet to make his pit stop. Lenioto back out onto the racetrack now. Currently circulating in the 4th position. But we're expecting all of these LMP cars to come down towards pit road in probably the next 5 minutes maximum.
Yeah, let's see if Keiko Schubert decides to utilize the same strategy as Lindelof as he's coming out of into the last corner right now. And if he pits, we're able to actually see just how narrow that pit entry is. Yeah, it looks like it's no. Just take the middle of this front straightaway. Obviously dealing with the faster traffic here, indeed he is. But if we manage to deal an information, if you're able to monitor the chat log, if you're able to see when somebody's going to be able to do their pit stop, we could actually follow them on board to see just how narrow it is, because you basically have a wall-covered chicane, which is just about a car width. And you still have to go there in the middle of the straightaway. It's not even like a straight after the exit of the corner. And then you have to accelerate more and heavy braking into the pit lane speed zone.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on it and see whether any of these drivers come down towards pit road this time, so we can try and get you a look of that on board of their car. But very narrow pit road here, as you allude to. Unlike, you know, tracks like Monza, for example, where they have, you know, it's on the straightaway, but it's a more sweeping pit road. Here, it's very difficult for these cars as Mansberg comes down past the stripe once again to put his 32nd lap in the books. That last time, 1 minute 25.672 for him. A great lap, which actually is one of the fastest laps he's done in this race. Only about a tenth and a half slower than his fastest lap that he set on lap number 19 of this race. Having a look at the cars come past pit road, got a couple of them coming out the final corner now. Reaching Namba, currently running in the 2nd position in the LMP class. Keiko Schubert in the number 1 car. He's now coming out of our line diet box as well, but he will continue for another lap once again as Maxim Ramstein will try and go past him as they work themselves down into turn number 1 once again. And it's one of those things as well that you kind of know when these cars are going to go down towards pit road, because you can just move that car to the right hand side because it actually makes it easier to make that swoop down on towards pit road. But everyone's staying out on this lap, so we'll try and bring you as soon as someone does make that journey on towards pit road. Give you an update on Guilherme Ratto as well. We don't think he did get a speeding penalty, but that really is going to cost him in that battle for the race lead. Am I right that DeRouge has pitted? Yes, he has pitted. And Justin Groeneweg is currently sat now in the second position. Nick Prestige still is your GT1 race leader, sorry, GT2 race leader, but there's a lot of traffic that will be coming up behind him in the next 2 or 3 laps or so he would want to come down towards pit road soon.
Yeah, he has a clean track behind him at this very moment, but the HPDs are lapping so much faster, 125s compared to 140s. So 15 seconds left, so even though you cannot see anything behind Nick Prestige's car right now, 1 lap later he's going to have 5 HPDs behind him, so that's the speed differential of these 2 classes. And yeah, if just like we see the HPD appearing on the top of your screen, so if Prestige thinks that now would be a good option in relative to the faster class to come into the pits, might be a bad choice, but no, he decides against it, stays out for 1 more lap, as Maxim Ramstein is coming to put a lap on him.
And the car still got upset. They're closing that down. They've only got themselves, what, about 13 minutes left to go. We've not seen any of these guys fuel saving, however, so we do still expect them all to make a pit, so we will be splashing dash with them though. Probably wouldn't even expect these guys to take tyres at this point in the race. Strategic. I'm going to go very wide once again as Roderick Cronin, his teammate, passes him, the LMP2 car on the GT2 machine. Kate Kashube is only about 4 seconds back on the racetrack right now as well. And having a look through the field, it's a lot more spread out as well right now. And this is going to help. It would have helped Guilherme Ratto because he's got himself a clean track ahead and behind him right now. It would have helped him quite a lot had he not made that mistake on pit road. That probably is the most costly mistake of the GT2 field all day.
Yeah, it has to be, and looking at the pit lap times right now, it looks to me like Nick Prestige is going to be the clear winner of this race, unless there's a big traffic jam or something else coming involved, because Nick Prestige has been lapping below 140s last 4 or 5 laps, whereas Robert DeRouge and Guillermo Ratto, who both made their pit stops, are above 140s. So Prestige has been able to nail faster lap times than these guys with old tires, and even if he comes to the pits and takes a longer pit stop, he still will beat them. So without any external assistance from the other classes, Prestige just have this in the bag. And looks to, no, he tapped the brake in the middle of the corner. It looked to me like he was diving into the pits, but no. As Kei Kashube, by the way, is just coming to put a lap on the GT2 leader.
And once again, so this will be Kei Kashube in the number 1 car, trying to go on board with Kei Kashube momentarily. And this is, you just say how narrow this section of the racetrack is. As soon as they come out of turn number 1, work themselves through 2 and 3. And this is where Prestige's always had to run kind of wide on this section of the racetrack. Pretty much the entire race of traffic has gone past him. But Kashube, you see, he's now closed that gap. He's now going to look to the left-hand side, and you see that just a little bit there. Prestige will let off the gas, get a job done before they have to start running these curves on the run down into turn number 5 and 6. Kashube go past, and he is your GT1 race leader. Gatsing himself and Florian Denard is absolutely huge right now. It's up to about 15 seconds on the racetrack. Kashube really has been the class of the GT1 field. Talked about his qualifying performance when he was, what, a full 5 tenths of a second faster than Denard. In race pace as well, he has just been outstanding today.
Yeah, he has been, and like we saw in, as he gets passed by HPD car, I think Robert Cronin it was, when he was passing Nick Prestige there in the infield straightaway, which is not exactly straight. It's it has a right-hand fast kick, you take it flat out. It has a left-hand kick, you take it flat out. It has another right-hand kick, you take it flat out. But you cannot take it flat out when you're too wide with somebody. So like we saw there with the wheel, using the steering wheel, when Kei Kashube was lapping Prestige too wide through that infield straight, he had to work a lot with his wheel just to keep his car straight, and he even had to lift slightly into the left-hand kick because he was on the inside line. If he hadn't done that, he would have pushed right into the side of Prestige. So that just tells you not only how narrow the track is, but how tricky even a straight line around this racetrack can be.
So, working ourselves now with just about 10 minutes left to go here at Circuit Park Zandvoort for the Proto GT Challenge race here on Glacier TV. Dimitri Namba is still your race leader, sorry, right now in the LMP2 class, as Mads Burr has made that trip down towards pit road. Dimitri Namba was your race leader, and in the GT1 class, it's still Kate Kashibo from Florida Denard. In the GT2 class, it's still Nick Prestigi, who is yet to pit. Jessica Groenweg in second, Robert DeRouge in third, Jonathan Fuller in fourth, Joachim Rato rounding out your top five. And we've got ourselves a total of 6 cars.
Dimitri's going to pit. Sorry, Dimitri's going to pit. Now we're going to see the tight entry into the pit lane. That's insane. Insane entry, actually, if you're in the middle of, if you have two guys going too wide behind you and you have to force to make that trip into the pits, you have to slow down in the middle of the straight. And if you have one guy going too wide behind you, there's pretty much no room to work with. That's a scary place to be.
It's funny because, you know, the speed limit on the right hand side says 60 kilometers an hour. Of course, that's about 37 miles an hour. But these drivers, you know, you can't really even take it at that speed. You will be a lot slower than that. However, out and away there for Dimitri Namba. Let's see where he comes out in relation to Mads Burr. Mads Burr is pretty much all the way up on the Sunrise at the end of turn number 5, and right behind Stefano Leniotto right now on the racetrack, as Mads Burr begins to go past Leniotto there into turn number 5. Just to try and sum things up a little bit now, you know, that pit road is very difficult, but it doesn't look as though drivers have been able to gain too much of an advantage there here today, because everyone's just being as cautious as each other. Of course, we've still got about 10 minutes worth of racing right now. I'm trying to keep an eye on these battles on the racetrack, and it looks as though that Jonathan Fuller, I'm just trying to see whether he's made his pit stop. He has indeed made his pit stop, and he's ahead of Guilherme Rato. So that shows just how much time Rato lost in that cycle of pit stops by taking 4 tyres.
Yeah, that was the dramatic error. I'm not. Rato is one of the experienced GT runners in this series. I cannot believe how much of a rookie mistake that guy did by taking 4 tires. I mean, in a 65-minute race, for a 2 to 4 hour endurance race, taking 4 tires is absolutely a good option. But for a 65-minute race, when you have a splash of fuel to pick up 4 tires, is the worst thing that you can do to yourself, because that's forced to take about 15 seconds at least, compared to 7 to 8 seconds of that splash of fuel. So that was race lost for Guilherme Rato and his own personal mistake.
His own personal mistake, indeed. And with, what, 6 minutes left to go, we expect to take the tube to come down towards pit road at all? 10 minutes left to go, sorry, even?
Yeah, well, you said Rato into the pits. I would say Prestigi into the pits more likely, but everyone else outside of everyone else except Prestigi has done their pit stops, and not this time around necessarily. I would say that in 2 laps, I would guess that we see Prestigi pull in, because Prestigi is one of those guys alongside Robert Urkila and Kimmo Suominen who knows how to save fuel with this car, but I'm not quite sure if he's able to save as much as Robert did, who almost did a 65-minute race with the 1 tank of fuel. But I would put my money on not this time around, but the next time around he's going to pull into the pits.
And it's fascinating,
but he surely has this race in the bag.
And it's fascinating as well how some of these drivers can save fuel while still going fast as well, and it all comes way down to the way that these drivers especially use the brake and the throttle in the corners as well, to make sure that you still keep the speed up whilst making sure they are as efficient on that engine as possible as well. Mads Burr, he's now got himself a 2.5 second gap over Roderick Cronin.
And Roderick Cronin actually is now making his final one and only pit stop in his pit box. Let's see if his regular stop, 7.3 seconds, fastest pit stop of the HPD field outside of Michael Booth. So good pit stop for Roderick Cronin. Only takes the splash of fuel. Didn't look like taking tires there. And now Dimitri Namba, after making that pit stop, is now right in the tail of Michael Booth. Michael Booth actually got past Dimitri Namba because Dimitri had the second slowest pit stop of the whole field. Michael Booth had the fastest by 6 seconds compared to Dimitri Namba. So now Dimitri is having to fight for his position. He just lost it in the pits.
Yes, and Michael Booth there in a great club, UK and iCar, having a great pit stop, and it is very important in these close fields to make sure you get yourself on and off pit road as quickly as possible. Of course, Roderick Cronin, He lost a lot of time early on in this race by a big incident down into turn number 1 when he was going 3 wide and just outbraked himself there and caused a 2-car incident. But back out circulating on the racetrack, not much damage we saw there from Roderick Cronin, but he's fallen behind Dimitri Namba, so he's currently now going to be classified in the 5th position in class. Meanwhile, Michael Booth, he's actually got himself about a 1.1 second cushion. He needs to be lucky. He needs to get himself past these 2 GT cars without too much of a hiccup. And then I think he might just have that 4th place in the bag. But good job here by Michael Booth in that 8 car. And let's just hope he's got enough fuel in that tank.
Absolutely, Dimitri Namba is not giving him a very hard time driving into the turn 1. Michael Booth takes the inside line in the pink car, trying to defend his position. Yeah, it might be a possibility. His stop is so slow that actually, yeah, like you said, saving fuel comes into mind, because that also almost looks like his second fastest pit stop is 7.3 seconds, 2.3 seconds faster than the second fastest pit stop. Almost a splash of fuel with HPD fueling. With the speed that HPD gets a fuel in, so might be a tricky situation for Michael Booth, because yeah, yes, he did pick up. Actually, he's up to 3rd position now, but since Roderick Cronin made his pit stop, Roderick is down into 5th, but he's really have to fight for that position these last few minutes.
So cars still circling on the racetrack with 5 minutes left to go, and this is going to be the best battle on the racetrack. This is between Michael Booth in the 4th position in the LMP2 class and Dimitri Namba in the 5th position, battling for not only points here today. Namba's going to get spun.
Crash
round. And that's Buller there.
That was miraculous that both cars didn't go sideways, and Dimitri didn't flip. Got Holmes over upside down there. It's just one of those, again, late decisions. Even though the GT2 made it pretty obvious that he's going to leave the door open, but just a too late maneuver for the HPD to dive in. He should have just indicated that earlier. Just second bad move by HPD driver in my eyes in this race. Nothing bad, but that's exactly those situations where the GT car cannot look into his mirrors forever. So he has to focus on the apex if the HPD looks like he's not going to take that corner. So scary situation.
By the way, Kei Koshube has come down onto pit road, made his solitary stop of the day, is out and away on the racetrack. I'm going to look at Nick Vestigi as well. He has just made his pit stop by the look of it in that GT2 class. So he's able to do, what, 60 minutes? And so he's made his pit stop. And for Vestigi, he can get close, but he can't quite do the entire race. But you talk about, you know, those incidents between the GT1 and the LMP cars and so on and so forth. I mean, it's been very close. It's like, you know, we're talking like, you know, about a foot between these drivers, and it is always a little bit about give and take here today. However, on a track like this with those big braking zones, especially down at the LDS, makes things very difficult as well. We are, however, approaching the last couple of minutes of this race, and it is still Mads Burt ahead in the LMP class. He's got himself now, what, a 17.5 second gap over Marker, and something happened to Michael Booth there. Has he come down towards pit road again? Or he had a mistake? Yeah, he's lost himself 7 seconds.
Yeah, he did come into the pits. He's showing 2 pit stops right now. Weird solution to come into the pits at the late stage of the race. Yeah, Michael Booth pitted on lap 40.
So yeah, it looks like he didn't put enough fuel on that car. So that might explain why he had the fastest pit stop of the race. He's dropped back down into the 6th position in that number 8 Apex Racing car.
Oh man, driving a 65-minute race and throwing it out because of 1 click of fuel, that's just disastrous.
And it looks as though Topano Benioto might have had a bit of an incident as well. I think he's saying that he might be low on fuel as well. So some incidents in the late stages of this race here. But that's going to be huge. That's cost him 3 positions there, this Michael Booth. And as it comes past the stripe once again, yeah, he's a full 30 seconds behind anyone else in this class. You've got, meanwhile, Maxim Ramstein is having a battle with Roderick Cronin in the late stages of this race. In fact, Dimitri Namba is only a couple of seconds ahead of them. Very close right now for 3rd, 4th and 5th position in the LMP class with, well, how many minutes we've got left? Surely like 2-3 minutes left, 2 laps?
Yeah, 3:30 left to go, so I'm saying 2 full laps as Mads Burt crosses the finish line, see exactly where he is. He is actually already circulating, so 2 more full laps I would say for Mads Burt.
So, approaching the late stages of this race now, checking in on your race leader, Mads Burr. That last time past the stripe he did a time of 1 minute 26.706. Marco Acadonio did a time of 1 minute 26.642. So Mads Burr hasn't always been the fastest guy in this race, but he's known when to pick up the wick as he's now coming behind the GT1 race leader once again. That is Kei Kashibe, as Kashibe getting a little bit wide there to allow Mads Burr to go past. But that battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th position, it looks as though that Maxim Ramstein is the fastest of those 3 cars right now. He's just struggling to try and get past Roderick Cronin to get himself back up into the 4th position.
Yeah, without traffic, setting up a pass in this racetrack can be tricky, extremely tricky. And speaking of Maxim Ramstein, he last time around, yeah, like you said, he was 4.4 of a second faster than Cronin was. And Cronin, on the other hand, was 1.7 seconds faster than Nama was. Not sure if how much of involvement traffic had over there, but clear margins with the lap times from the P4, 3, 4, 5 cars. They're all on the screen momentarily there. And but without traffic, like I said, setting up a pass with HP, even with the HPD, is very tricky around here. And I don't think. I think turn 1 is the only logical place where I would expect HPD to do a braking maneuver without any traffic involvement. But if there's any traffic involved, any corner is possible.
Indeed, yeah, and for Maxim Ramstein there, as come down to turn 1, it looks like he hasn't got the top line speed of Roderick Cronin ahead of him. Cronin's actually able to keep that position because he has got such a good run as they come through our line light box and then through the front straightaway as well. However, time ticking away here. Time is running out in the GT2 class. It's still Nick Prestige from Robert De Rouge. Bohemi Rato has faded for the time being as the car coming down into pit road. That is Patrick Burl, who's having to make his bust from that towards the end of this race. And we've seen about 4 drivers having to do this now, which is surprising because these guys should know what their fuel number is, but they all got a little bit aggressive. It's another drive now.
The reason why Patrick Burl is in the pits because he has not yet made a pit stop.
He's managed to go all the way?
64 minutes in a Corvette without pitting. His pit stop was 2.8 seconds. He needed a splash.
That, in many ways,
amazing.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, even though he is running last, but that's amazing fuel savage.
So, we are now down into the last minute of this race, of course. We'll keep an eye out on Mads Burr. He's currently circulating himself through turn number 1 and 2, so we probably might see the white flag of this time by...
one white flag is in the air.
Yeah, so 1 more lap left to go for these drivers. And in the 2nd position, it is still Marco Cadena. He is close that gap to 16 seconds, so unless Mads Burr makes a serious mistake, he will still be safe in that LMP2 class. Keiko Shube still leading the way in the GT1 class, following Denard in 2nd.
Robert De Rouge taking the lead in the GT2 class. Late diving into the S's here.
I cannot believe this with, what, half a lap almost left to go?
Yeah, I was just about to say that Nick Prestige just has to cover up the inside and the Corvette traffic is coming right behind them, but Robert De Rouge just stole the show.
He did, and we'll get us a replay of this once the race is complete, of course. We're waiting for these drivers to come past the start-finish line now. Meanwhile, Mads Burr is working himself down into the Audi S for the final time here at Circuit Park Zandvoort. Just got himself 2 corners left to go. Down he comes now into Kumo box. Turn at number 12 for the final time. Now it's flat out all the way from here as it comes through the Aaron Lyndike corner for the final time. And Mads Burr is going to win the Proto GT Challenge event from Circuit Park Zandvoort, doing the famous wiggles already now. He will take victory there, and Marco Cadena will come home in the 2nd position. But for Robert De Rouge, this is the Joe Steeler here.
Robert De Rouge is not out of the woods yet.
And Prestige is on pit road. Prestige is on pit road.
Something happened to him, or just ran out of fuel?
I think he's just run out of fuel. And
this is just, honestly, this is just ridiculous. I mean, some of the runners, I cannot believe, but these cars, it is not F1 car, the splash of fuel more into the fuel tank is not actually costing that much, unless it's a pit stop where you have to take a splash extra, but calculating that much wrong, and this many cars in the top split, this is just in somewhat ridiculous from the top runners of the series.
that Kei Kashube has come past start finish line to take GT1 on as Robert De Rouge in the GT2 car is coming now down into the Audi S for the final time. He will come with a bit of a gap now over Guilherme Rato, so unless he runs out of fuel, he will claim the GT2 lead. Surely we can't have any more surprises in this GT2 class before the end of this race. But Robert De Rouge now coming through Aaron Iron Diet Buck for the final time. And he let off the gas there, and I thought he was out of fuel, but he will come past to take GT2 victories there. Guilherme Rato will come home in the second position. Nick Vestigi will likely come home in the third position here. An interesting race, but the story of the day is people need to fire all of their crew chiefs.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. I mean, we saw Michael Booth failing the calculations in the HPD series field. We saw well, in the Corvettes, I have to say, we didn't see anyone doing that extra splash, but we saw Patrick Beery just saving fuel that just possibly tried to even go for it without looking at his lap times. I would guess that he actually tried to go without refueling the car at all, but just failed slightly. But I cannot bet on that. But yeah, then Verstigi losing the race because of one splash of fuel. Like I said, he had the race in the bag if he just pitted, taking the right amount of fuel on board. It's just unbelievable.
So then to run through your final race results here from Circuit Park Zandvoort. First of all, in the LMP2 class, and Mads Burr taking victory in a time of 1 minute 5:44 seconds. Marco Academio coming home 14.1 seconds behind. Dimitri Namba in third, Roderick Cronin in fourth, Maxim Ramstein in fifth, Michael Booth in the sixth position, then Radcliffe Pike rounding out your LMP2 field. Then moving on to the GT1 class with Kei Kashube absolutely dominating in that number one car. Florian Denard in second, Kevin Parrish recovering to take home third, Spano Lenioto fourth, Leon Druganon in the fourth position, Patrick Berry in fifth, and Jack Cedric in the sixth position. And into GT2 World, and it is Robert De Rouge in first, Guilherme Rato in second, Jonathan Fuller in third, Nick Vestigi in fourth, Jasper Groeneweg in fifth, and then Chad Holmes running out your GT2 field. Only two retirees in this race today, Radcliffe Pike and Jack Cedric. And Yodi, before we go off there, driver of the race.
While looking at the replay, slow motion of Robert De Rouge making that beautiful overtaking maneuver, I would have to say Robert De Rouge because of that last lap pass. Well, I'm not sure if it was the last lap, but let's get an onboard view of Robert De Rouge's car as he makes the dive in. As you can see, he's not even in the draft zone. He just picks his spot, and it almost looks like Verstigi was already in a fuel-saving mode because he was lifting way earlier than a normal braking spot would have been. And yeah, if Verstigi knew that he's gonna run out of fuel, that's an understandable move. But still, doing that maneuver late stage of the race still gets Robert De Rouge gets my driver of the race.
And I'm not going to give it to Robert De Rouge. I'm going to give it to Kei Kashube just for his absolutely dominant performance. I mean, qualifying, amazing. Race pace, amazing. Better than anyone else who we've seen in this race here today. And I think of all the drivers, he has been the dominant force, not only in GT1, but in all of the classes as well. And of course, that concludes our broadcast here of the iRacing.com Prototype GT Challenge race here from Circuit Park Zandvoort. Next time we'll be on air will be next week, 65 minutes off Virginia International Raceway. Start time for that will be 5:30 p.m. GMT. And of course as well, plenty more action to bring you on Glacier TV over the coming weeks, starting this Tuesday with the 16th Street Racing League International Light Technologies Road Course finale at Road America. Start time for that, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday, GMT. We've also got you a full range of coverage to bring you, of course. Glacier TV bringing you 14, 16 races of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And also, don't forget, if you like your GT racing, then the McLaren Proto GT Cup will be the thing for you, presented by Glacier TV. And meanwhile, I've been Will Vincent, and that has been Yoni Backman, and it's time to say good night. Good night!
Good night.